meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Bergeron.
Present.
Coos.
Here.
Harris.
Present.
Carlson. Here. Olson.
Here.
Severson.
Here.
West. Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Communications. I don't see anything other than envelope. Persons to be heard. I have a mark here, and I apologize. I can't read your last name. Hey, come on up. Come on up.
Hello. I'm Mark Janevsky. I'm from Bazan Architects. We're the architect working on this building here, and I'm here at the City Council meeting. It comes up on the agenda to answer any questions you have about the project.
All right. Thank you for coming.
You bet.
All right. Brings us to consent agenda. The only thing I saw that we might add was
72.
yeah, number 7A1. Nobody has a problem with that. We shall add that. Do we have a motion to
Your Honor.
add?
Can we pull 5A4?
5A4.
Library.
Oh, the library thing. Why don't we just leave it in there? We'll make a motion. We'll vote on everything. Then you can make a separate motion for that. And I'll discuss. All right. Do we have a motion to consent? Yes. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, please read items.
Approval of minutes, regular meeting of July 18th, 2013. Ordinance number 1731, amending Ketchikan Municipal Code entitled Exemptions, first reading. Harbor Facility Grant Agreement, construction of Bar Harbor South drive-down float, and reconstruction of floats 1N and 9. Budget transfer, Waterfront Promenade, Phase 3. Exempting the procurement of 4G/LTE wireless billing system from competitive bidding requirements, Comsoft Corporation. And a budget transfer for the Ketchikan Public Library utilities.
All right. We have comments on 4, which we'll do separate. So we'll be voting on 1, 2, 3, 5, and then 7A1. Call the roll.
Harris.
Aye.
Coos.
Yes.
Severson.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Bergeron.
Aye.
All right. That passes 7-0. It brings us now to 5A4. Matt, you want to make a motion?
Yeah. Thank you. I move the City Council approve the agreement between the City of Ketchikan and the Ketchikan Gateway Bureau for the payment of funds to the City of Ketchikan for library services during Borough fiscal year 2013-14 and authorize the City Manager to execute the agreement on behalf of the City Council.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Matt?
Yeah, I'm kind of kicking myself because I really brought this up at our budget. And last meeting, we sat there and told the manager that we wanted to see our monies hold at this next budget. And one of the ways that he could get himself to hold this budget is if we urge the borough and work with the borough to include the payment of the bond package in the calculation for their payment to us. It would generate about $130,000. And I was remiss in it, and I'm going to amend this motion here, but I just want to give a little heads up. I'd like to move that we amend the motion after where it says City Manager 2, put comma, begin negotiations with Ketchikan Gateway Borough to add a section allowing for the library bond to be included as an operational cost for the purposes of calculating future agreements, comma, and.
Second.
Okay, explain what that's going to do.
That will hopefully put the borough, or not put the borough, I'm sorry, put the calculation. Sorry, my brain is getting way ahead of me in the heat. And that will allow us to put the bond payment into the agreement so that we can add that calculation, or that money is in there for the calculation, and generate roughly $130,000 for us. The borough agrees that the borough residents should pay the operational costs, and I see the bond payment as an operational cost for the new library. If we are a business, any business would include those construction costs or whatever in the operational costs of their business and adjust their product and the payments were out accordingly, I think we should do that here.
Now, so the motion will approve their 422,
Yeah,
but will
it's-
also include the go talk to the.
It's too late to change it now. It's too late to change it for the borough now, but we need to get the discussions rolling so that hopefully by December, when we're in our budget, we know that we can include this calculation beginning in next June or July.
Anybody else? Nick?
Just a question, have we had that in front of the Co-op Relations Committee before where it's been thoroughly discussed and is anything with or not?
I've been trying to think if we brought that up or not. Carl, have we ever brought that up?
I don't think we've brought it up formally at the Cooperative Relations Committee. We have had discussions. The borough is not enthused about participating in the debt service, but I would agree with Councilmember Coos. If this motion passes, I think the appropriate place to bring it up would be the Cooperative Relations Committee.
Okay, we can start there and work. Sam?
I was just going to echo the manager's comment that I don't think that the borough is going to be that excited about this idea, but I think it has merit. I think that it wouldn't hurt to bring it up, and I'm going to support the motion. Thank you.
All right. Matt?
And I have talked with a couple of borough assembly members who said just as Sam did, that was something they were willing to discuss, and it seemed like it was something that should be put in there for equitability.
All right. Call the roll.
Is this on the amendment?
The
Will it-
amendment will make it, if we approve the amendment, the whole motion approves.
Okay. West?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Bergeron?
Aye.
Harris?
Aye.
Severson?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
Okay, we'll take that as the motion passed 7-0. That brings us down to unfinished business, which we haven't done. That brings us to new business. 7A2, negotiation of professional service agreement for contract 1321 design services for Phase 4 of Berth 1 and 2 replacement project P&D engineers. Do we have a motion?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I'm going to abstain from this one because my wife participated in this. So.
10-4. Do we have a motion?
Your Honor,
Go ahead, Bob.
I move the City Council authorize staff to negotiate terms and conditions of professional service agreement with P&D Engineering, Inc. for the contract number 13-21 design services in Phase 4 of the Berth 1 and 2 replacement project in the amount not to exceed $150,000 and an agreement to be submitted to the City Council for formal consideration and approval.
Who didn't second it? You want to add anything, Bob?
No, it sounds like they went through the process and based on their discovery, made a recommendation that they could be comfortable with.
Dick?
Yeah, just a comment, as this moves forward, I think there needs to be more than one public meeting, and the council needs to be kept up to date on what's going on, because the surface of that down there is going to be very important to everybody and what goes on, so let's make sure we don't end up with any surprises.
You bet. Deanne and Sam. Oh, Sam?
I just wanted to back up my good friend Mr. Coos here and say that I definitely want to know what's going on down there before contracts are let, and that we don't have a repeat of what happened down there. I hopefully we'll have something that's more congruent to the area, and I'm sure we will. Get a good design team on it. Everybody's shaking their head, and I think we're going to do a nice job. Thanks.
Call the roll.
Severson?
Yes.
Bergeron?
Abstain.
Coos?
Yes.
Harris?
Aye.
Olson?
Yes.
West?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 6 and 1 abstention. That brings us down to 7A3, Gravina Access Project, Draft Supplement Environmental Impact Statement and Alternatives.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move the City Council direct staff to submit comments to the Department of Transportation and Public Facilities on the Gravina Access Draft Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement, SEIS, as determined appropriate by the City Council.
Moved and seconded. Sam?
Well, this is quite an agenda item, and I can tell you that back when Dick and I were on the Borough Assembly, and then the idea of a bridge came up, and we were still kind of hurting from the pulp mill closing and feeling a lot of economic pain, and things weren't quite as robust as we would like them to be. We thought that the bridge was a pretty good idea. But as time has passed, and as we look at the bridge alternatives and the impact on a very established cruise industry, and as we also look at the state of the federal funding and all of our other needs that we have, I can't really support and will not support any kind of a bridge option going over to Gravina. The only thing that I could possibly get behind is what Mr. Corporon put in his in this agenda item, which would be an additional ramp on this side and one on the other side for redundancy, and then perhaps expanded ferry service. But anything beyond that, I think, would be detrimental to our economy. I would hope that any agenda items that would come here would be one that would expand what the cruise industry, for them to stay longer rather than a disincentive for them to come. So I think I'm just going to stop there and let this discussion go on with the other council members and see what they have to say. Thanks.
Dick?
Yeah, I probably disagree with Sam a little bit. I admit that the cruise line industry has grown, and we've benefited from it. But let's take a look at this and think about this as if it's the timber industry. We never thought it would go away. And this may be an opportunity, and I'm saying maybe an opportunity, it may be 10 years, it may be 20 years before we see a bridge to actually expand our economic development opportunities and not have to rely upon a ferry, which, admitted by the state, is going to cost 2 to 3 times as much in the long term. So I think we shouldn't just narrow ourselves down to what's happening today or what may happen if, quote, the ships get bigger. We need to look out into the future, and this future is 50 plus years out. So I would suggest that we not say no to a bridge, but maybe take the tack that the borough did, and they, even though I prefer the 2-bridge alternative, say we do need a hard link. And maybe we suggest to them that they raise the bridge a little bit. But still, even if it's a little higher, it still affects how you may come and go. But I still think a bridge is the best long-term, and I'm saying many years out, several decades, for this community. The ships, even though as much as I appreciate them and I work with them every day, they do have motors. They're not a fixed hotel on the ground. And we've already got a $40 million road that sits on one end over there that is truly the road to nowhere, if you want to call it that way. And I think there's just lots of economic development issues that in the future could benefit us if we had a hard link to that island.
Anybody else? This is a chance to give direction to Carl.
I have a question about the ferry alternative. It looks like it's that much more expensive, but does the cost of the ferry, is that cost include the cost of the people that will be working on the ferry? I mean, is that the cost of what the jobs will be, rather than some other cost? And does it also take into account any revenue that might come in from the ferries? I just think that's a really confusing number without that information.
Steve Corporon, Port and Harbors Director. It's a good question. Unfortunately, I don't have the answer to it. I was not at the DOT meeting. I had other obligations that night. But
I can't fathom what in the world that number would be so high about if it doesn't include the cost of having the people that would run the ferry. I mean, it's just
right. I know the numbers did include replacing the ferries at an interval, but to me, what makes a little more sense, when they put it out, you would need a 3rd ferry right now to do it right. Mm-hmm. So you'd always have 2 and 1 available for emergencies or routine maintenance replacements. And if they put one in the pipeline now, so it's built in a few years, then you'd have them on a fairly decent rotation schedule as far as in about 20 years, you'd probably replace the first one, 25 years or 27 or 28 years, replace the second one, and then another 7 or 8, 9 years to replace the third one. So you wouldn't have a big bill coming due.
Okay, but if we're looking at building ferries, we're looking at creating jobs to build ferries, and there's not any jobs created.
Yeah, and I don't know how they ran their numbers as far as that kind of stuff.
It's hard to figure out what the thing is. Okay, thank you.
What I was trying to point out in my memo on if they're going to go with a ferry option, one that makes the most sense is to double up where they are now, not spread your operation out, because that really doesn't do you time-wise much good. But if you ran it where you had 2 running all day and 1 all night, that would give you the 24/7 access to the island. So if people wanted to start doing housing developments or more commercial development, something like that, you have to have that 24-hour access. You can't have this, now we're shutting down at 9 o'clock every night. No one's going to want to build a house over there with that. But I used to live in a community that had this exact same scenario for 3 years, Governor's Island in New York, and that's how they ran it. They actually had a fourth ferry. They had a fourth ferry that was an old one. That was an emergency spare. But they had 3 good ones, and then ramps on both sides. So you always had a ramp no matter what happened. If something, either routine or emergency maintenance, you had something right there. But you always had either a ferry pulling out or a ferry pulling in, like we do for 3 months during the day in the summer here.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I don't think I could support a ferry option either. I was looking at some information before I came, and 1 in 9 of the bridges in the country are in substantially degraded to the point that they need to be replaced. And I don't see the state being, ponying up, considering all the problems we've had with them doing minimal safety on the 3rd Avenue bypass, that they're going to step up and want to do the maintenance on a bridge. That bridge would be enormous. We don't have power to offer people over there at this point. I think the bad press that we've gotten because of the bridge to nowhere make this just an exercise in futility to try to pursue a bridge option.
Steve, at that area you lived before, what was the cost for you to take that ferry back?
That was actually a free ferry. The Coast Guard ran it. Governor's Island at the time was the biggest Coast Guard base in the world, actually. And it's right off the tip of Manhattan. And so they ran those ferries. The only real difference, those ferries were a little bit bigger. In fact, I have one of our ferry captains in my office today talking about it. He said if they ran 2 ferries like they do here, the only problems they have is that a lot of times they have to leave cars behind. I said, what about during the when you're running 2 ferries? That doesn't happen as much then. So if they're running the 2 ferries, whenever during the day and in morning and evening rush hours and things like that, it should be all right. But their ferries are a little bit bigger, and the pedestrians and the vehicles didn't mix during the loading and unloading process, because what they had, all the vehicles went down the middle, and then they had, but the starboard and the port side both had pedestrian areas on each side, and that's where the walkways were. So here you lose a minute or 2 as everybody's walking on or walking off, and then the cars can't load or unload. So that hurts your operational time right there a little bit. So as they would go to replace the ferries, as traffic increased over the next 20 or 30 years, and you start replacing those, you'd want to go with something a little bit bigger, a little more car deck space, and you don't have the cross maneuvers going through.
My concern is the cost of taking that ferry. You're going to have to put a harbor on that side of the waters in order for the person that builds a house over there to economically get back and forth to town.
Well, you look down south, there's people, in the big cities and there's toll roads all over the place. And if you either pay every time you go through, or you get a monthly pass or a yearly pass, and it brings the cost down, and it brings the time down. And people do that commute every day.
But it can't be as expensive as taking that ferry.
No, well,
if you had to go back and forth every day.
and if you look, I think in the alternatives, they used $4 or $5, I think, for cars. Or was that for the people? But it brought the price down. Their alternatives were assuming a certain amount to keep it liquid. So it wasn't going with the current, the heavy prices.
Yeah, I just don't know how anybody could build a house over there and figure to commute with the ferry system at the cost that it is today.
Tim?
Well, if we consider the vast amounts of money that we're talking about when we talk about building even the the less expensive bridge, it's just a phenomenal amount of money. And if you think about funding from the legislature, and let's say that we get this funding for this thing, and then what about the rest of our infrastructure needs? What about the rest of the state? When it comes time to pull out money for Ketchikan, well, we just gave them $250 million for a bridge. And even though we've got crumbling pipes and infrastructure and ruts and streets and things like that, we have needs that are far more immediate and far higher than a bridge. And I think it's time for the grown-ups in the room to say that this project is not a good idea. And then if we're going to do anything, let's do a ferry, or let's leave it alone and do nothing. We've been talking about this long enough. It no longer makes any sense in the funding environment on the federal or state level. just need to put it to bed. Thanks.
Anybody else? Matt, Deanne? Let's hear from everybody. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, 25 years ago, I was all for the bridge, just because the bridge is cool. We're going to have access over there, and you start thinking about what that access means. And over the years, I've completely gone the other way. I disagree with the need for a bridge. There are several reasons. One of the largest is economic. We've already touched on the cruise ships, but whatever we do here with our economy, whether a large-scale timber comes back or it's mining, the really only thing we're going to be transporting across the Narrows are people. If housing developments go in, that's great, we'll get some deliveries. But the large-scale economic individuals and the groups that are going to be doing stuff are going to use that seaway to push everything, whether it's from this side back and forth across or whether it's just straight down south. They're not going to utilize roads. And I think when we look at that expenditure and we look at the impact it can have potentially on the cruise industry, which right now is one of our main or the main industry, I think we need to rethink where we're looking at here. We're not going to use Gravina for large-scale timber. We're not going to use Gravina. I mean, we're not cutting all the trees on there. We're not going to mine the hills down. High Mountain isn't going to be chopped down for rock. It's primarily going to be, in the future, if it is, it's going to become a suburb of the community. And you know, I've been very forthright with this. I've got 3 acres in Valner Bay. My view is Helm Bay to Grindle Island. It's beautiful. And as soon as I have a road going in, I'm building a dream house. I might get to a cabin before then, who knows. But whether or not I have to take this ferry round trip is not going to stop me from building over there if I really want to do it. I think at this time it's not prudent for us to do it. I think it's a waste of state money, and I think the other thing we should do is when we sit there and we say we don't want this money right now, we have a lot of other infrastructure needs that we have to get taken care of, and I think we need to start including our water and sewer in some of them. When the state's doing a road, the state needs to pay for our water and sewer right now. This community just paid $20 million for a swimming pool. We got about $3.4 million from the state Department of Education to fund that pool. It's either Bethel or Dillingham got a $26 million appropriation to pay for their swimming pool last year or 2 years ago. So we're missing out, and I think it's more important for us to look at our infrastructure, look at our growth that we're going to do. We've got, just on Tongass Avenue out by the ferry terminal, there's about 12 or 13 acres of heavy industrial land that isn't used. The old pulp mill site is not completely and totally utilized. You've got the old Sealy site that still needs to be working or get fully up and running. Saxman Seaport. There's all this infrastructure over here, and we're worried about getting where we have no infrastructure. I don't see it being feasible now. I don't see it happening anyways. So I think we should start pushing to continue with what we have and start pushing the state to invest more in our local infrastructure rather than investing in a bridge that's really not going to lead to much for a while.
Anybody else? KJ?
I just want to concur with what my fellow council people over there. They're saying is correct. Or at least in my mind.
I can't hear you, KJ.
I'm just saying I agree with Sam and the other guy over there, Matthew.
But not with me.
Kind of.
All right, just checking.
Just checking with me. I think it's a waste of
All right, Dick, did you want to add something?
Well, I would disagree with them. I think it's fairly still short-sighted to look at where we are just right now. And, you know, it's like saying you see a number of people in town that will write off the timber industry in a minute simply because they don't see a future. Well, the trees are still growing. And they're going to grow and they're going to die. And there is potential over there. And sure, it's going to affect somebody, but once again, it's long range, and I don't see this job as competing with monies the state may give us for sewer and water. They're totally different types of funds. And this is it isn't a city road, Polk to Gravina, it's a state road to a state airport. And they have a responsibility to take care of that. Now, they can take care of it any way they want. All we're doing is giving them an opinion. But I still think we're real short-sighted by backing off saying we would like to have a hard link to that airport. Just my comments.
Yep.
I just have one more. Dick just reminded me of something. I think Scott Boland in the newspaper hit it, or wrote very eloquently about it, and the term I believe he used was unfettered access. All of these options have us paying a toll. I think it's, I think our having to pay a toll for a decision the state made, and I believe that would be the only toll that is paid to get to it, to an airport. I think that needs to be addressed, and I think we should address that, and it needs to be subsidized in some form.
All right, so what I've gotten out of it is we have 4 council members are interested in more ferry access, 2 in a bridge. If we do a bridge, I say we gotta encourage them to go higher. Talk to industry, and they're looking at 230 feet in the cruise industry. And definitely with Matt, we should be pushing the no toll thing, so I doubt if they have tolls in Anchorage. So.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
One additional comment. I think that the comments that you're making towards the bridge being higher, I think, is a partial answer to some of the concerns by Sea Piles that within the letter we got from the Sea Piles, plus there was one in Sit News. And if they have a bridge that they're totally comfortable with, that won't cause them any, won't fetter their access at all, then, you know, that would still, I would still be opposed to doing it, because I don't think it's our highest and best need. But that's what we should be going after. If we're going after any kind of a bridge option, it can't restrict cruise traffic at all. And keeping, you know, Mr. Coos talks about the future. Well, the future of the cruise lines is that those ships are getting bigger and bigger. And they're doing that because fuel is more expensive and there's an economy of scale. And in some discussions with the harbor master today, if we have one ship, a large one, that misses the port for whatever reason, that's dockage and wharfage fees to the tune of about $40,000 for the city, plus the average of about $200 per passenger that they would have spent here in Ketchikan. So this entire discussion needs to center around access to the cruise lines and expanding, and at least allowing them to grow with whatever size ships that they have planned for the future to be able to get in here. We talk about our hospital remodel, and we talk about the economy and our ability to pay for that, and some of the discussion has been is that we can do that within the tax structure that we have if our economy goes along as planned. So we don't want to do anything that we know that could be harmful to our economy, that could stop our revenue flow. I mean, with sales tax dollars, dockage and wharfage fees, so we have to be very careful and mindful about that. Thank you.
Carl, have you got any direction?
I need it clarified for the minutes.
I
I'm hearing a majority wants to endorse a ferry option. I don't know if, as the Port and Harbors Director recommended, you want to be specific to alternative G4.
I did not hear that.
Could I have Steve come up for a few minutes, please?
Steve, come on up.
Port and Harbors Director Steve Corporon.
So the alternative G4 and then G4V, what you described in this memo, which would more closely align itself with G4V or G4?
G4 was the basic one that added a ramp on each side. It added some passenger waiting facilities on this side. I think it developed, improved the loading facility on the other side for like a barge offload and things like that. Okay. That was the basic G4.
That was your basic.
And I think all the ferry options, except the basically don't do anything option, had mostly the same improvements on the airport side as far as, you know, fixing up the dock over there and fixing up the loading ramp and things like that. But G4 was the one that put another ramp on this side, but put them at the current location instead of, you know, putting a new set of ramps either at Peninsula Point or at the mall, which would help those spots right there, but operationally it wouldn't make a lot of sense.
So G4 was the one that you were referring to
Yes, sir.
in your end. Okay. So, Mr. Mayor, would it be helpful if we endorsed G4? Made a motion to do
You want to
that?
make a motion?
I offer that motion that alternative G4 is the selection of the city.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Dick, you want to comment?
Well, I had a question for Steve.
Come on, Steve.
Come back up.
You bet.
I just do it for the breeze.
Good, very good.
Walk
Main
faster, we
question,
don't get much.
what was the hours of operation under that alternative?
I'd have to go back and look at it. I want to say it was 9 or 10 o'clock at night, switching to the one ferry. I think it was like after the last flight came in, switching to the
So
one
we're
ferry.
still basically the same hours. We're not going to gain more access to Gravina, except,
No, you'd have a ferry all night.
well, they're going to run ferry all night.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
you'd have 2 during the day and in the early evening in that. Basically, the time the airport's open, you'd have 2, and then when the airport's closed, instead of having no ferry like you have now, you'd have one ferry.
Have a seat there in case we have another question.
Bob?
I'll call you
And-
back up.
And the intent is to have that somewhat subsidized in order, because the ridership alone will probably.
Yeah, I think that's how they
type.
cook some of their numbers doing that, and that's why they set like a certain price, an assumed price. And I'm sorry, I haven't reviewed this for about a week. We have to get this stuff to Carl a week ahead of time now, so you learn a whole bunch of stuff, and then then I'm like, I've spent the last 2 days working on all the stuff for the next meeting, so I know that stuff really good right now. And I probably should have taken some time to refresh what I wrote last
that's
week,
fine.
right before I came in tonight, but I was watching the Red Sox come back and beat the
Oh.
Mariners.
We'll have a seat.
Okay. All right,
I
Matt?
can, in looking through the packet, I did find it says they're expecting revenue of $451 million over the life of this.
Well, that's over 75 years.
Yeah.
I know, but they're still expecting $450 million from the community in order to, so, you know,
So we're going to pay.
Yeah.
we're going to pay. But I think that's where, whatever it is, whether it's a bridge that we finally agree on, whether it's a tunnel, whether it's the ferries, we need to tell them we're not paying. And part of the problem that I'm having with this right now is you've got the borough is slowly increasing the footprint of the airport ferry over on this side. The infrastructure for that ferry is growing larger and larger, and now they're adding pay toll stations so you can pay to park your car over there on this side. And we're slowly seeing our cost to do this get priced up, and I don't think there's a chance in hell the state's going to build us that bridge. I think even they're going to look at this cost and they're going to say, well, it's cheaper, we can just string this along this way, and they're willing to pay the cost. I think we need to just sit there and say, we're not willing to pay the cost anymore. We need better access, we need cheaper access, and it's not our fault that you put the airport over there.
Give it back to the state.
I'm fine with that. I said that before,
Okay,
Dick.
well, let's take a vote and see where we're at. Call the roll, please.
Well, just for clarification
You
for the
bet.
minutes, we're looking at alternative G4.
Correct.
Correct.
Stops there, but we don't want to, the comment about no cost to the community, that shouldn't be in there?
Yeah, we want to put that.
So we want to put that in.
Okay, just for the manager's sake. All right,
Thank you.
and minutes. Okay, Coos?
No.
Bergeron?
Aye.
West?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Severson?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
All right, that passes 6-1. That brings us down to item 7A4, budget transfer change order 2, contract 1238, City Hall exterior and interior renovation, Dawson Construction. Change order. Do we have a motion?
John?
Go ahead.
I move the city council approve change order number 2 in the amount of $275,602 to contract number 12-38A, City Hall exterior and interior renovations project between the city of Ketchikan and Dawson Construction, Inc. Increase the contract amount from $2,400,000 to $2,727,318. Authorize a budget transfer of $87,318 from appropriated reserves of the Public Works Sales Tax to the Building Maintenance Division, City Hall siding and roof replacement capital account. Approve funding from the Building Maintenance Division, City Hall siding and roof replacement capital account. And direct the city manager to execute change order on behalf of the city council.
Moved and seconded. KJ, do you want to add anything?
In for a penny, in for a pound, kid. We took on this project hoping that everything was just going to work out right, and we're going to change the out exterior and stuff. And geez, we found asbestos, and then we found, I believe we just found a couple of days ago, windows that nobody knew were there. They were hiding in the wall. You open up a building that's 80 to 100 years old, and that's the stuff you find. We got to pay this and keep on going, and just hope this project don't run too much over $3 million.
Anybody else? Sam?
Yeah, I'd just like to add to what Mr. Harris said, is that it's a remodel. Remodels are never fun, especially on older buildings like this. And this abatement and all the other fun stuff that we're running across is unfortunate and not what we really want, but it's there and it is what it is, and we're dealing with it as we should be. I'm going to support the motion as presented. Thank you.
Bob and then Dick.
Carla, we opened up all the building that we need to open up. We looked at what we need to look at. Anything? Is there anything hidden here yet that we don't know yet? Oh, we bringing reinforcements.
Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Cliff Allen, Public Works Director, City Engineer. No, I don't think we have opened up everything. We've done a lot of opening, I guess, from the inside, if you will. And for those who haven't seen it, I think most of you maybe have. I'll just pass around a photo of the surprise down on the first floor where we expected a concrete wall. We found windows from the original building with, I'm assuming, leaded glass, very likely asbestos-containing glazing in that. They're kind of cool, but we're not going to deal with them, and it changed our plan. We haven't opened up the outside exterior all the way around. There could be more of that. And I, as a carpenter by trade, yeah, there was a time I used to work for a living. I can appreciate your comment. When you get into old buildings, and I love them, I really do, there's always a surprise around every corner. Always is. So unfortunately, I'd love to say we're very confident that there won't be any more surprises, but I can't lie to you. Sure.
Thank you, members of the City Council. Morgan Berry, Public Works Contracts and Grants Administrator. One condition that we are aware of, we've performed some selective demolition where we're intending to install new windows on the alleyway. When they opened up those small areas to see what kind of condition, they found that, for instance, where we'd infilled walls in the 80s, late 80s, the water had penetrated in and actually rotted out the metal studs that were used to frame those infill panels. So that's driven some of the design considerations on the cladding, where it says Ziegers and stuff like that. So that's one condition where we weren't expecting it to be that bad, and it turned out that it was in worse shape than we had. We didn't expect that the infill framing would just be completely rotted. We knew the water was penetrating, but that was unexpected.
Was it water or condensation?
Water. The Administrative Assistant's office and in, I believe, Stan Agater's office.
So with our new super duper exterior cladding system and insulation stuff, we won't have any of that, right?
Bring on the architect.
Hi, this is Mark Janewski from Bazan Architects. Wow, that's a loaded question, but here goes. We have a building envelope specialist on this, Trinity Yardee, right, who's been working in the city for 15 years, and I've been working here a while, and I just want to say that the system we proposed for the building has a lot of redundancy built into it, so that if a problem occurs, I mean, we can't guarantee everybody's going to be perfect in construction, but if a problem occurs, there's redundancy in the system. There's a weather barrier in the system. There's flashings in the system. There's a rain screen in the system. All those things that did not exist in what you have now.
Don't tell the knuckleheads that are putting that in that it's all redundant, because they'll do it sloppy and it'll all fail.
Okay, point taken.
Any other questions? Dick?
I'm just going to make a comment. We've now burned the contingency. Like KJ, it seems we're going to burn it again, and I think we've got to I don't think we've done a very good job of value engineering this or watching what we're doing. We talked about metal siding here a while back, and I got a 3-page letter justifying why not, and I still think that was the best way to go. But I'm not gonna approve any more contingency on this project, so we better figure out how to do.
Bob?
So any of those old windows, where we're gonna put the new windows?
In one location, yes, we elected to eliminate the new window because we felt that in order to remove that window, abate it, do all the rigmarole involved with it, it didn't merit installing a new window. It was also one of the fire windows, so there'll be some substantial savings.
Oh, boy. So we'll see a credit next time. I'm holding you to that one, Morgan.
All right, call the roll, please.
Carlson?
Yes.
Harris?
Aye.
Olson?
Yes.
West?
Yes.
Bergeron?
Aye.
Severson?
Yes.
Coos?
Okay.
Okay, 7-0, that passes. Now, next is 7A5, discussion request for proposal, professional service contract for assessment of the operating efficiency and economics of the Police Department Operations Division, the 911 Central Communications Division, and Parking Enforcement Division. Councilmember Coos. Dick?
Well, I don't know whether we want a discussion or I'll just make a motion, but
Let's start with the motion. Let's start with the motion.
I would move that the manager put out a professional services contract for an assessment of the operating efficiencies and economies of the Police Department Operations Division, E911, Central Communications Division, and Parking Division.
We have a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay, Dick?
And I think that there's been a number of things going on for a couple of years that lead us to believe that we need to do this. And personally, I think we ought to be doing it on every department about every other year. And through a period of 7 or 8 years, you're going to rotate through them and you'll find out whether we can improve or not improve. But the thing that really, I think, emphasizes this to me is the attorney's report that we got here recently about things that are happening in the police department. Points that to me, that there may be a morale problem, there may be an organizational problem, and there may be other challenges there that maybe we can improve on, maybe we can't. Maybe we can save some money, and maybe we can't. But probably for the tune of, I'm going to say $10,000 to $20,000, and I don't have a clue what this may cost until we put out a proposal that we need to do this for different departments just to make sure we're doing a good job. Maybe nothing wrong at all. There may be something we can improve.
All right, next. Anybody else? Go ahead, Marty.
I just wondered, what do you think this would cost?
I don't know. Carl may have a thought, but I can't remember what the HR department cost. But I'm throwing out a figure of $10,000 to $20,000.
I think HR was somewhere in the range of about 15. I would suspect that this will be somewhat more.
Yeah,
until we put out an RFP.
Put out an RFP. If it's way out of line, we don't do it.
No, I was just looking for a ballpark number.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, great, thank you.
Matt?
Carl, how much have the changes from the HR assessment are we going to spend?
We're going to spend, or
how much are we budgeting after we had them come in? How much money are we spending now to make the changes that they recommended to HR?
You budgeted a fair amount in terms of the employee and supervisory training that was recommended that we're going to get done by the end of the year. You just approved an additional $38,000 to do the update of the comp plan, which is one of the recommendations. I have seen the draft budget for the HR division for next year. They have budgeted, throw out a rough number, 20 to 30,000 and additional things that the council endorsed moving forward with that we're not going to get to this year. Those are just rough order of magnitude numbers.
So we're looking at between $80,000 and $100,000.
Well, then you're going to have to decide when you see the recommendations of the comp plan update, whether you want to recommend those, and I suspect then you're looking easily 6 figures.
No, I understood. And I'm just going to say this again. Last week we said we want this next year's budget to hold, and we're going to sit here and put another expenditure in next year's budget. And what service is that going to cost us? And what service is that going to cost our residents? There are groups in the state and in the country that would probably be willing to come in and take a look and help us. I trust the professionals that we have working for us to do this and to look forward and look for changes, but I don't see continually putting on a rotation and even beginning to go down this road right now when we are being very strict and saying do not spend any more money, that we're going to add another line item to these departments.
Bob?
Well, I don't think that this is too unlike what the state of Alaska is doing right now. The legislators chose to look at each department or division on a rotational basis to try to find out if they can find some efficiencies to cut their operating costs. The difference between us and the state is, I think, this coming year, Health and Social Services is under the gun, and they said, we want to review, but you're going to cut 10%. They gave them a number to cut, and I'm not willing to do that here, but the fact is the state is looking for efficiencies within themselves in order to, hopefully reduce their budget. So I don't think that it's money ill spent. We get mundane in what we do, and we do everything the same. And there might be somebody from the outside that could say, well, if you do it this way, or you can do this, or, hopefully there is a cost saving. It's not always going to be, but hopefully there is.
All right. Call the roll.
Bergeron,
No.
Severson,
Yes.
Olson,
No.
Carlson,
Yes.
Coos,
Yes.
Harris,
No.
West.
Yes.
Okay, that passes 4-3. We move down to 7B1, discussion of previous city council direction regarding operational maintenance agreement between the Southeast Alaska Power Agency and the agency member utilities, Mayor Me. I talked to Mr. Coos and got my information answered. Sam, did you want to discuss anything?
No, I just wanted to say that, I'm all for in continuing on with the O&M agreement with KPU and SEPA. I think that it's an important component in the community's tie to these projects. And I think that KPU is established, mature utility with 43 very qualified people. And, I'm proud to be a part of that organization, and I have no qualms about going forward and continuing the operation of Swan Lake. And I would hope that this council would see it the same way. Thank you.
All right. We'll move on from that item and go to 7B2, Amendment Number 1, LTE and Rural America Master Agreement between the City of Ketchikan, DBA KPU, and Cellco Partnership Verizon Wireless.
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
I move the City Council approve Amendment Number 1 to the LTE and Rural America Master Agreement between the City of Ketchikan doing business as Ketchikan Public Utilities and Cellco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless, and direct the General Manager to execute the amendment on behalf of the City Council.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anybody want anything? Call the roll.
Harris, Coos, Severson,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Bergeron.
Aye.
That passes 7-0. That takes us to the next item on that topic, 7B3, Master Purchase Agreement between the City of Ketchikan, DBA Ketchikan Public Utilities, and Erickson, Inc.
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
I move the City Council approve the master purchase agreement between the City of Ketchikan doing business as Ketchikan Public Utilities and Erickson, Inc. in the amount of $1,358,396 for the purchase of 4G LTE equipment. Authorize a 3% contingency in the amount of $40,752, bringing the total project cost to $1,399,148. Approve annual support and software subscriptions in the amount of $62,000 for the 2013-14 and $76,038 for the 2014-2015 year. Authorize funding in the amount of $1,399,000 and $1,399,148 from the Telecommunications Division's 4G capital account, $62,335 from the 2013 Telecommunications Division Engineering and Architectural account, account number 640-02, and $76,038 from the 2014 Telecommunications Division's Engineering and Architecture account number 640-02, and direct the general manager to execute the agreement on behalf of the city council.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'm
On the
excited.
equipment.
Bob?
Yeah, I have a question in regards to the software subscription and annual support. I was looking in the year 2013, 2014 at $62,335. When are you expecting to roll this product out?
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Dan Lindgren, Assistant Telecommunications Division Manager. Our timeline for this project is to have it up and operational by May 1st of 2014. The support agreement will take place as soon as the equipment is installed, and effectively the equipment will be in place in January, at which point we'll start moving through a testing process with Ericsson and Verizon and KPU and integrating all of our systems. So basically we'll write the PO in the 2013 budget for the year 2014.
Well, my concern is when you buy something, it's up to, and we get it installed, all the stuff getting up to pay that we turn it on should be under the construction warranty, you know, all this kind of stuff. So when I look at software and support stuff, I see that as after we have the system up and running and we've actually signed off on it. So if you start from, say, May, we're looking at more like $40,000 for 2013 to 2014 rather than 70, because we're only looking at 6 months rather than 10.
And those will be prorated. So if the effective date when the equipment's in place and it triggers that start date of the software upgrade and support agreement, if it's May of next year, then that annual support will run from May of that year till May of the following year, at which time we would do the new support agreement. So it is possible, Bob, that we could not have to, you know, depending on when the actual deployment of these eNote Bs and this equipment is placed, that it could fall in 2014 instead of 2013. So, but I don't think it's really going to change the fundamental amount of the contract award that we need to make. We know we're going to buy 5 eNote Bs, and timing-wise, if it's December of 2013 or February of 2014, it's really not going to impact the overall budget item.
Do our support contract, do they run calendar year or budget year, or do they run off system? Or
it is based on when a certain date. So once KPU accepts the system, that's the date that the maintenance agreement will start, and then it will run from that date for 12 months. So it really depends.
That's indicative for both general government and KPU. It's very rarely tied to a calendar fiscal year.
Thank you.
All right. Nobody else? Call the roll. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
West?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Bergeron?
Aye.
Harris?
Yes.
Severson?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Brings us down to 7B4, Contract 1229, change order for Whitman Lake Hydro Project, General Construction, Dawson Construction, Inc. Do we have a motion?
Your Honor,
Go ahead.
I move the City Council approve change order number 4 in the amount of $63,858.58 to contract number 12-29 Whitman Lake Hydroelectric Project, General Construction between the City of Ketchikan, DBA, Ketchikan Public Utilities, and Dawson Construction, Inc. Authorize funding from the electric division's Whitman Lake Hydroelectric Project capital account and direct the general manager to execute the change order on behalf of the City Council.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Want to add anything?
Oops. It was a bad situation on it. Well, that pipe got broken, water didn't go where it was supposed to, you gotta fix it, you gotta pay for it.
Carl, is this part of that all that problem out there?
It addresses that problem.
So, are we paying most of it, or?
We're paying all of it. We're paying all of it.
Well, did we do the blasting?
No.
Like Marty.
I thought we'd be.
This change order will drastically reduce the likelihood of a similar incident. And one of the reasons KPU will pay for this is even after Dawson is done and leaves the site, that temporary pipeline is going to remain in place until the hatchery completes its work. So there'll be a period of several months when it will be KPU's responsibility to maintain that pipeline, even after Dawson is gone. So
we're responsible for the blast, or are we talking to them about?
They have been approached about the costs that we incurred as a result of the blast that they're going to be held.
Okay, that's what I was
We're going
wondering.
to pay. This is something above and beyond
Okay,
that. And
that's what I was asking. Thank you. Matt?
Well, I just wanted to say, I understand that this is above and beyond, but the pipeline never should have been severed to begin with. And I understand things happen in construction, but I don't understand why we're paying for this entire thing. I can see the construction companies being responsible for it until construction is up, and then us paying them a prorated amount until Sarah gets the hatchery online, but I don't see us paying for the whole thing.
the bottom line is Dawson's not responsible to maintain that line after they leave. And if anything should happen to that line, the settlement agreement that we've executed with Sarah puts us solely responsible for any loss of fish. And it's going to be a lot more than the amount of this change order. You're talking probably over $1 million. So this is what I would consider an insurance policy.
I understand that, but I see this as an insurance policy for the contractors and for us, and I don't understand why we're paying for all of it. And that's...
I mean, if you want, we can raise the issue with Dawson, but I'm not.
Well, if this happened in another project and somebody does a bad blast, what do we do?
Just what we did in this particular instance. The costs that we incurred to deal with the incident, Dawson's going to pay.
They are.
Okay? The line has been stabilized. Okay? And the contractor and our engineer are taking very deliberative actions as the blasting continues up that corridor to the dam to ensure that nothing else happens. All right? But at some point, the contractor is going to be done. Okay, and he's not going to have a responsibility to maintain that portion of the line. That's going to be our responsibility. One of the change orders that was approved earlier, I never discussed it with the council. Okay, at my direction, we put in that oxygenation system. Okay, that wasn't brought to the council in advance. It's a good thing it was put in, or we would have lost the fish. This is the same type of thing I'm recommending that the council do now.
It sounds like you addressed my problem. Sam in the book.
Right. I'm going to support this as presented, and I appreciate you taking care of this potential hazard. It can go back and forth between the contractor from here until the cow jumps over the moon, and it's not going to change that we're going to pay for this, and they're not going to want to, and it's going to go on and on. So let's just move in and vote this thing through and put it to bed. But the other question I had, Carl, is let's say something does happen, there's a valve to throw. Who throws it, and who knows to throw it?
While Dawson is on site and has control of the construction site, Dawson will be responsible for operating any valves. Once they leave the site, it will be either KPU or probably in the case of the temporary hatchery line, the hatchery personnel will also know how to do that since they're on site and can access it more quickly.
And everybody knows where the valve is, and everybody knows what to do.
They will, yes. The valves that are in there now are clearly labeled. Sarah has been instructed on what they're for, and that will happen with these new valves that are being put in as well.
Thank you.
Bob?
Yeah, I think Carl probably fairly explained it fairly well. Is the fact that we move beyond the blast and the slide stuff. Now we see what the liability potential is, and going forward, the city's going to assume a portion of that or all that liability after the contractor's gone. We just want to make sure that during this construction phase that we have the ability to respond if we do have something go wrong.
And given the location of these temporary lines along the creek beds in the bottom of the canyon, even after construction's done, there's risk from falling rock, trees, logs, lake spills. They're in a very vulnerable spot. So.
Thank you. All right, call the roll, please.
Severson?
Yes.
Bergeron?
Aye.
Coos?
Yes.
Harris?
Aye.
Olson?
No.
West?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
All right, that passes 6-1. That brings us down to vouchers, Ketchikan Daily News, 4667.68.
I move to approve vouchers in Ketchikan Daily News in the amount of $4,667.68.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the roll.
Okay. Coos?
Yes.
Bergeron?
Aye.
West?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Severson?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 7-0. Brings us down to manager's report. Carl, you have anything to add?
Just one, Mr. Mayor, you have a special meeting scheduled for August 8th to do evaluations of myself and the city attorney. We opened bids yesterday on the 2013 paving project. There was one bid, Seacon, and I'd like to bring that forward at the meeting of the 8th rather than waiting to the...
That'd be great. I've been just looking at all the places. It's probably one of the most exciting things each year.
We're going to paint the entire counter.
All right, council have any questions? All right, seeing none, that brings us to city clerk's file,
Nothing, Your Honor.
city attorney's file, future agenda items, mayor and council comments. Dick Sarzoff.
Just one, I would appreciate seeing a draft copy of the RFP that goes out on the police department 911 thing before we send it out. I'd like to see the scope of it.
Sounds good. Sam?
I'm not sure what we're doing with the police department, so I guess I'd like to see that as well. This is what the deliverables are. Your contact there. I think that's, although I didn't support that, I might be able to get myself behind it if I see there's something worthwhile to do. That's all I have. Thank you.
Dan?
I was wondering if there is any update on the wellness program that was implemented.
Dave, do you have numbers that you can give on the Horton initiative?
I have numbers from about 2 weeks ago.
Do you want to come up?
Dave, you look like hell. Are you on the program?
That was good.
You're bad.
Actually, we have there of the eligible employees, and this is as of a couple of weeks ago. We've got 48% that are enrolled in the are in participating in it. Of the available spouses that are, or excuse me, the eligible spouses, there are 52% that are participating in it. As far as how people are doing with it, I really think that it's taken about the first 3 or 4 weeks to really get caught on and to get people excited about it, if you will. And to be quite honest, the weather hasn't hurt yet as far as getting people outside. We'll know. We'll have a lot better numbers probably. I'll get those first week in September now, and I'll get a report and get that out. But it's doing pretty well.
I'd further note that the assistant manager has issued his own challenge to a number of us. So.
Yeah, and so of that one, there's probably we've got 60 people participating in that. That'll start on August 5th, and it'll run for a couple of weeks.
Your own challenge?
Yeah, and it's basically to try and get people to take the cutoff point in order to win you'll win 300 miles or health points for each person that makes over 100,000 steps in 2 weeks, which is not that difficult.
That was maybe going to be like quit smoking or something.
That's out there.
Thanks, Dave.
Should be the logo.
Matt?
No, sir.
Bob?
I'm just enjoying all this wonderful weather. And I hope people realize that we're having one of the greatest summers we've had in a while, but we are a system based on hydro. And we're going the other direction now.
Use the rain.
All the melt is done. There's no more inflow. And so when we get down to the point where it says, hey, we got to turn on a diesel, just kind of think back about when you were relaxing in the sun and enjoying all this. Thank you.
Marty?
Yeah, I did vote on the RFP for the police department, but I'm not completely sold on the project until I see what the scope's going to be. We talked about two different objectives, and one would be some economies and operating efficiencies, and the other one was morale. And those are two quite different purposes. So it'll be interesting to see how that gets worded and also how much it's going to cost. I'm not sure that I will support it finally, but I'm interested in going at least that far with it. Thank you. That's it.
KJ?
On a personal note, what a privilege it is to live here. This is a great little island community that we have. Sometimes the weather's not perfect like it is now. We have very little crime, thanks, Chief. You know, we have very, I've heard of 2 attempted bank robberies in 32 years, if that. Very little crime. I tell the tourists it's like this every day here. It only rains 4 or 5 times a year, about 2 foot a day, but you know, we are very lucky to live here, and I just want to make sure everybody hears that from me, because sometimes I bitch.
All right, the only thing I have is we do have that August 8th meeting, where we will be talking with the city attorney. Since he is under contract and he isn't an employee, we can still talk to him and let him know what our thoughts are on the department. Carl's will be an evaluation. I'm always happy to see the paving schedule thing in there. Makes us feel like we're doing something. So I'm glad to see it go on and get it done as quick as possible. Had a meeting on the bond election about how we might want to promote that. I really encouraging, and I know the hospital's involved, and I think it is something that we're going to, from the last week of August through September, we're going to all have to be out there supporting that, because it is a major economic impact on us. We need to stay up on top of making that facility first rate, and it'll come back to us in dollars over and over again. So I'm going to be out there for the next 5 weeks, starting that last week in August. I think I'm already scheduled for several places, so hope to see you guys out there too. I had another meeting with Forrest Cole from the Forest Service, not related to the council stuff, but you know, talking about the future of timber and everything. And like Dick says, hey, we might have some come back again, and Dick is right. There's a second growth, and there's a major opportunity for this area in second growth. And that was really interesting talking to him for over an hour about and how it has to be done. And it's just it was the first time I think I've walked out of a Forest Service office encouraged. So I just wanted to pass that on. All right. Seeing nothing else, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.